Hello, viewers. Today we are going to talk about the state of banks in India. Um, there are many banks. There are private banks, there are public sector undertaking banks, there are cooperative banks. And amongst all these things, now there are some rumblings. When we had the Nirav Modi scam, you had the PNB bank that said that, it had not, it had some exposure. And then, somehow that kind of got covered up. And now PMB has failed. And depending on who you talk to, you can either withdraw 2,000 rupees per day or 10,000 rupees per day from PMB Bank, but I don't know whether they are going to be able to get the entire deposit or not. We don't know about that. The third thing is there's other banks that are now coming into play because of their exposure to some other bank stock or some other entity stock. To unravel a little bit of this, to get some clarity about the banks in India and the banking system, we are joined by Sri R Balakrishnan. Bala, welcome to PGurus channel.
Hi, Sri. Good morning. Good morning from here. I don't know whatever time it's there.
Yeah, we are a little behind, slow here. 12 and a half hours behind you. It's evening time here.
And good morning in advance to you.
Yes, October is supposed to be a cool month, but it's we have a weather warning, and tomorrow we may actually have an outage for the whole day in where I live. So I'm kind of bracing for it. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, thank you. And Bala, help us understand what is going wrong, or should an average depositor be concerned about what is happening to the banks in India?
Well, I think at the outset, let me say the depositor should be concerned but not worried about his money at this stage. Yes, there would be temporary loss of liquidity if the RBI kind of an act where they freeze the operations of a bank for some time pending review. What we are doing is we are kind of pressing panic stations. I put it this way. See, there is a cleanup of this entire crony capitalism which has started maybe 5-6 years ago. So as it unravels, I think we are finding more and more dirt, but it's an operation dirt cleaning. So we are bound to find more dirt. And in between, I think these frauds in banking keep happening. That I think the system is such that the RBI is, I think it has its hands full, one. And two, I think some of these frauds are clever where a random inspection would not show. One cannot expect an RBI to do a 360-degree audit in a bank. It is sheerly not possible, the number of branches and infrastructure. So a lot of things do run on faith. And if there is a structured fraud where I hide what I have done, it's very difficult for an auditor or an inspector to find out. So to that extent, there is a problem. But I would say that if I go by history, the government has never let a bank depositor down. They have given him anger for some period by restricting his deposits, which actually for some people can be very painful if you have been like, we don't think about where we keep money. We go by the most convenient place, the most friendly place, and keep all our money in that. I think that is the first mistake as depositors we make. And a cooperative bank is a structure which I think there is no need for it to continue at this stage. It had its role, it's over. Now a state bank or other nationalized banks are there in every corner. There are microfinance companies serving this need. At best, if you want the cooperative bank, say that don't deposit. Why do you need a cooperative bank in Bombay of all the places?
That's true.
You have it in the remotest villages, fine, let them. And you have got regional, rural banks, so many things which are there. A cooperative bank which has no supervision effectively from either the Apex Cooperative Bank or the state government or the Reserve Bank, it's a recipe for disaster. Every cooperative bank is backed by one politician or two politicians. So you will never see very drastic action because somebody owes somebody a favor and there will be a bailout. I think the record books are full of those bailouts. Unless you have a problem. See, the problem with Reserve Bank is the resolution time is very, very long. I don't know if people remember there was a bank called South Indian Cooperative Bank.
No, I don't. Doesn't ring a bell.
It was a very, very Bombay-centric branch, Tamil Brahmin community serving branch, and more to Tamil. So it was like about 4 branches in Bombay, and then there was a problem politically with the sponsor or the backer of the bank, and then it was frozen, and it took 3 years for it to unwind when it was merged into another bank, Saraswat Cooperative, I think. And for 3 years, you don't keep depositors hanging. You say, you can withdraw 5,000 rupees. Then you'll say 10,000. Then you'll say 25,000. I think this is not right. I think if Reserve Bank ultimate decision is going to be a bailout, they should have an urgent meeting, say that this is the problem, this is the amount involved, and we got to bail out, there is no option, and do an overnight takeover of somebody, put these people behind bars pending inquiry. I think that is the way to go about it so that the public confidence is not lost at this stage. And then do a second stage education, saying that let there be boards at every bank saying that your deposit is safe only up to 1 lakh. After that, it is at my mercy. Let the President of India put a board everywhere. That will, I think, make people wake up, divide their funds between banks. I think I am not worried about the banking system. I think it will get healthy. They still have to address issue. First is, I think a lot of crony capitalism is unwinding. Second is, I think the reconstructing the bank organizationally is something which the ministry has to think about seriously. The same set of people know the banks will head to the same direction, or there will be a fear of lending. These are 2 possibilities which will happen.
Now, Bala, we had all these shotgun weddings where 3 or 4 banks merged into a bigger bank. This has happened 2 or 3 times. I think State Bank of India swallowed all the other state banks, and then I think there was also one other thing that happened like that. Why is the government doing this? Why are they making too big to fail banks?
Well, I think is there an option, even if it's a nationalized bank with 100 crores or with 1 lakh crores, it is too important to fail.
Right. So what is
so what could mean? See, if you take the Bank of Baroda story and go behind it, what the mergers have got, I think a lot of duplication has been cut out. Today we have 5 branches of nationalized banks on the same street next to each other.
But none of those banks have been closed, though. None of the branches have been closed.
A lot of branches have been closed. A lot of branches have been closed. I think you can't do it openly and invite the union, shout about it.
Right.
I think they are doing a fine balancing act. I think, while I'm skeptical about a lot of things about the government, I think there are some good things which are happening. I think if we let time pass by, I think what has been built since 1969 in terms of nationalization and everything, I think it will take time to slowly get things. A lot of branches are closing quietly. I have seen it personally. I think the branches where I used to bank no longer exist. So it's gone merged. They say you go another 2 kilometers away, there's a bigger branch. So fine. So I think it will happen. I think let that process continue. And headcount, I think they are not adding people. So in 5 years, I think probably you'll see a leaner and meaner bank, hopefully.
So when the branch closes, if I understand you correctly, the employees are moved to the parent bank or something like that.
Correct. They have not sacked any people. I think they have good people. Today, if you look at the nationalized banks, see, it's a very interesting. Somebody should do a study on this. The biggest round of hirings had happened between 1971 and 1980. The whole mass recruitment where lakhs of people joined in a month into the PSU banks.
Yes.
After that, it has been very slow. So that whole big bunch of the retirement season is on. So there is a natural attrition which is happening in the banks also. So I think and if you take the percentage of employee cost to total business, I think it is comparable to any of these banks.
I see.
Because the wage levels are low compared to a private sector bank. Okay. The average wage is far lower in a public sector bank than the private sector banks.
See, one of the things I'm hearing is that the back end, which is computerized for many of these banks, each one uses slightly different software, a slightly different version of the same software, and those have not been merged. So essentially, you need to keep the computerized bank of account of each one. So some sort of a merger process needs to kick in too. Do you have any idea about that?
No, what I understand is these mergers were taken, the decisions to merge A with B rather than A with C was on the basis of technology. A
I
lot
see.
of banks are following two levels of technology, one which is given by Infosys and one which used to be the erstwhile Citibank subsidiary. So there are two broad, big time software. So each bank is on one or the other. So a lot of those things have been, I think, factored in before they do the merger, so that tomorrow the account numbers, all those things. And today we are already talking about bank account number portability, which the government is working on, which will be a word first. So I think technology-wise, I think we can, those things can happen. I don't think anybody's account operations have been stopped because his software didn't work.
Right. So this the universal bank number, which is the same whether whichever bank you shop in. I mean, that is just actually a procedural adjustment. You give 2 digits or 3 digits to a bank code that you append in front of your bank account, and that can still be your bank account. You just say the first 3 digits is 154 for your bank, or that way. What happens is all the bank numbers will be unique, and therefore then after that every individual's bank account is unique, and then it can be processed.
No, it follows like that. Even now, the system 13, 14 digits which are there, it
Okay.
has bank number, then the branch number, and all. If you see the bank, the
Maker
entire
code. Maker code. Yeah. Yeah.
of your account, the IFSC code will be something from that only.
Right. Right.
There's
Right.
a lot of commonality in that. So I think coding and things like that, I think we should leave it to the experts who are there. I think it is
Right. Right.
definitely possible, sir. If you can have an Aadhaar card which is unique number for everyone,
Right.
how difficult will it be to have bank account?
Right. 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 Right.
So
Right.
I think yes, the structural issues will still remain with the bank in terms of the manpower quality, the decision making processes, all those things. A lot of frauds happened in nationalized banks also because the branch manager, the general manager, zonal managers were given discretionary powers to up to 5 crores, 10 crores, whatever the amounts were. So take that away. Like if an HDFC or an ICICI bank can work, saying that given a 5,000 rupee loan, go through a centralized process, use technology for that, then I think a lot of headaches will be solved for the PSU banks also.
In fact, you mentioned a good point. In fact, somebody applying for a loan can use his smartphone and have an app for a particular bank, and then run it there. He can find out how much he is going to be credit worthy. This can be automatically done by the bank, so that it doesn't involve any human interaction, and you know how much you are going to be worth. The reason I'm bringing that up is because a lot of these human interactions were misused, isn't it?
True. No, human interaction, you have structured frauds where housing loans are given to with fake housing paper, fake names and everything. So if the after giving these numbers to people, you start giving numbers to properties also and have the centralized data being do that, I think the technology will reduce frauds considerably.
As a matter of fact, the technology is here today. It's called as distributed ledger technology or blockchain. If you use all the real estate details as well as the bank transactions used to manage the real estate details, then because this also resolves the ownership thing. When some people have,
Exactly.
multiple people are claiming, rights to the same title, that will go away. There'll be only one unique possessor. I would like to see that kick in sooner rather than later, but government has been making statements that they would like to see it used. I haven't seen it used yet, but I'm hopeful that that will happen soon.
No,
So,
I think in property the problem is it's a conflict between the state government and the central government. Because the state government has to act. Like I remember in Karnataka, in Bangalore, when they started this registration, they said you could go to any stamp office and register anything inside Bangalore.
hmm,
After a week, there was total chaos within the system because people got upset, the rent seekers, because they found that if Malleswaram was very corrupt, everybody would go to Koramangala and do their work there. If Malleswaram registrar felt that his target and his buying of that position is not being, there is no payback for that. Then they said you have to go to the same zone where your property is.
So essentially, we cut our own noses because we have some other
Yes,
considerations.
because the state level corruption is something which has still not been addressed, and that cannot be done by the central government. A lot of subjects which are within the state government control are the most corrupt areas in India. Whether it's an RTO issue, whether it's a registration of land, all those things, these are things which technology has to be forcibly introduced, and I think the state governments have to be reined in.
Bala, one curiosity question. Because of GST, right? A lot of the things that the Ministry of Finance at state level used to do is sort of automated, isn't it? Do you really need every state to have its own finance minister?
Well, I think it's a good question, but whether we, first of all, then we'll come to the next stage, whether do we need politicians at all?
Well,
We can,
that's a good
have
question too. Yeah.
body run it. I think it's very difficult. It is utopian in the sense like we would like to have a corporate structure for India, which will take care of everything, and the politicians will come, open ribbons, and go back. Ideally, that would be the situation, but I think life doesn't work that way, I feel. So it's very difficult to play the game with the local politicians because I think you still need money to fight elections.
That is true. And in fact, you brought up a good point. You can use blockchain to do voting also. And if that happens, then there is no money needed because you can vote from the comfort of your home on your smartphone. The Aadhaar card or the voting ID can take your biometric and verify that you are who you are. And therefore, then you can vote for whatever elections that you are eligible for. In fact, this even gives you an opportunity to vote many times. The last vote you cast before the counting starts, there could be a deadline. This is the day polling happens. The last time you vote, that is your final vote. You can even do that.
Well, it can be done technically, I think, but I always wonder why is a country like America still sitting on the physical vote paper and where they are supposed to be forerunners in adopting technology.
Bala, it's a good question, but I'll tell you why America doesn't do it. In California state, right? If you take California state, 85% of its budget has to be voted, meaning like everybody gets to vote on how they want their money to be spent. Do you want it spent on this or that? And so on and so forth. So if you think of $100 as being the budget in California, 85 is being voted for by people. Now, cities also will add their own measures. It's called a measure A, B, C, D, and so on, where they may say, I want to put a 0.25% for schools, another 0.25% for parks.
Understand.
Right? So what happens is the ballot sheet becomes quite long. My last ballot sheet in 2018, when I did the midterm polls, the ballot sheet was close to 10 feet long. I am 6 feet long. I'm 6 feet tall. It was taller than me. And I had to spend 4 or 5 hours looking at each of the entries to find out which one to choose. And then, you go and, fill it up. And then the entire packet is delivered. And what happens is the scanners will go through each one of them. So the counting is automatic. It is just that the polling is manual. And it is done for this reason. Every state has slightly different metrics and so on and so forth. And the most important thing is you cannot fudge. There cannot be any miscount. There cannot be any EVM fraud because you always have the proof. And if the verdict is within, I think, 0.5% or something like that, it triggers a manual recount automatically. So people will actually manually go through and check these things. So US, for all its fault, for the fact that it has a slightly different system than how you cannot directly vote your president. You have to vote for who is going to represent you, and these representatives in turn will go and vote for the president. It's very solid at the bottom, at the lowest level.
Fair enough. I think I understand a little better now. Okay.
So
And
thank you very much, Bala. Is there anything else you would like to add in
no,
summary?
basically, I would like to say that I think the banks, I would not worry, but I would protest for a big change in the way banking laws are there. Deposit insurance is still at a lakh of rupees, which has been there for donkeys here.
Trivial, yeah.
And I think you say that it increases to 10 lakhs and say that people who keep above 10 lakhs, say, they can pay a certain amount and get the insurance done.
Yes, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
So let that be done. I think there should be a thing. And the other thing is, like, I wanted to promote a bank once. Say that I want to be a bank with no capital. I can put a few thousand rupees of my own. But every rupee I take will be invested only in government securities, central government securities. I will take only savings and term deposits, and I will give an interest rate which is 2 or 3% lower. I don't need people to run the bank.
Right.
So I promise you safety of money.
Yes.
So of course the counter argument is you are taking away money from the system, not using it for good purposes. You are not lending, but I am lending to the government.
Yes. Actually, you make a good point, Bala, and I give you one other thing that is coming down the pipeline. Just like you have Uber, where you are doing car sharing, right? You are also going to have peer-to-peer lending. What it means is there will be a central site which will be looking at who wants money and who wants to give the money. Okay, so 3 people might say, I will give you the money. One guy will say 5% interest, other guy will say 6%, the third guy will say 7%, and the borrower can decide which one to take, and then the two will meet up. Just like Uber, where the driver comes to meet you.
But this is actually a very old concept. Today we have cheat funds, the couriers we call it.
Exactly.
That.
It is, except that there's a small difference in the sense that everything is on a trail. It's traced, it's tracked. Once the transaction happens, for the life of the whole thing, everybody knows this goes on the blockchain again. Then what happens is the proof is already marked. You cannot change that. That's where the advantage is. There is no like, I told you this, I didn't say this, that sort of any verbal thing will not be there. Everything will be like a cast in concrete.
Well, I think then the best thing is to educate the Ministry of Finance that such a thing is possible, so that otherwise you will have SEBI and RBI simply because they don't know, they will protest against it.
Absolutely, and this is a process that has started. I believe there are people who are talking to them, and I myself have met a few officials and so on and so forth. It's just that I don't make that my commitment, although I should if I'm really serious about it. I'm warming up to that. I will talk about this more in future hangout. But Bala, so you're saying that people should be concerned but not worried. At the same time, you also encourage people to spread their bank accounts a little bit, right?
Yes. If you're bothered about safety, stick to the public sector banks. That owner owns the printing press. I'm not saying because he runs his business well.
Too big to fail or something of that nature.
It's too important to fail.
Too important to fail.
Social unrest, the government just cannot handle.
Right. So thank you very much, Bala, for your thoughts on this topic, and we'll be back with more such interesting conversations.
Thank you, Steve. Have a nice evening.